War in Ukraine, the 14th of April. Regarding Russian refurbishment of tanks and armored fighting vehicles. Resurgam have checked satellite imagery to calculate what Russia has left to refurbish, and it does not look that good for Russia. They estimate that Russia has around 1,200 tanks that could be refurbished. They estimate that tanks of type T-80 will run out during the second half of 2025. Regarding armored fighting vehicles, they have decreased by 43% since 2021. If we look at Russian losses in these categories during 2025, they are decreasing. We also have fewer reports of Russian mechanized attacks of any size, which would indicate that Russian forces are having a lack of such vehicles. The fact that new units have been set up and the refurbishment, in best case scenario, does not cover the losses for the previous units, this is likely exacerbating their problem. The IISS estimate that Russia has lost around 1,400 main battle tanks and maybe 3,700 infantry fighting vehicles during 2024. Russian production of new vehicles will not be able to keep up with these losses. We have some estimates for newly produced tanks and armored infantry vehicles, and for tanks they are between 210 up to 360 tanks per year. And for infantry fighting vehicles or armored infantry vehicles, they are between 600 to 700. All of the above shows that Russia cannot afford losses on the scale they had during 2024. Now, this does not mean that Russia will run out of vehicles. They will have to simply use them less. Fewer armored vehicles will likely drive up Russian infantry losses, and I expect we will see higher such losses during the second half of 2025. The situation on the ground. Weather today. Kharkiv, partly sunny to sunny. Svatove, cloudy. Donetsk City, sunny. Kherson City, sunny. The Ukrainian General Staff reported 158 combat engagements in the last 24 hours. Kursk Sumy area. 18 Russian attacks reported. We have Russian attacks into Sumy Oblast with no confirmed Russian gains since yesterday. In Belgorod Oblast we have fighting at Demidovka, no confirmed changes. Heavy fighting, and that is expected to continue. Russian gains are possible over the coming week. North of Kharkiv, we have relatively limited Russian attacks, mostly focused in the Vovchansk area. We have a minor Russian gain at Tyke. The overall situation has not changed. I continue to assess the situation as stable. Kupiansk-Svatove area. 4 Russian attacks reported by the Ukrainian General Staff. We have a reduction in the positions being attacked over the last couple of days. I expect more Russian attacks over the coming week. I have no confirmed changes since yesterday. We have some ongoing reports of limited Russian mechanized attacks in this area, which have been somewhat more frequent than previously reported. That could indicate that Russian forces are now trying to gain ground in selected areas. Reports indicate that Russian forces have suffered significant losses from their mechanized attacks. Kremina area. 21 Russian attacks reported. We have confirmed Russian gains at Yampolivka. Likely, Russian forces have captured most, if not all, of that settlement. Likely, Russian attacks are aiming at taking Myrna, which is at one of the crossings over the Sherbets River close to Yampolivka. No other confirmed changes. Russian attacks continue in force on the western side of the Sherbets River, and those attacks are likely to continue at this level over the coming week. We have some reporting of some Russian armored support in some of the attacks. Russian gains are probable over the coming week. Ukrainian forces are under increasing pressure in this sector. Seversk salient, Bakhmut, Toretsk. In the Seversk salient, we had limited Russian attacks reported, no changes. The situation is assessed as stable. At Chasiv Yar, we had some limited Russian gains towards Stupotsky, no other gains reported. Some reports indicate an increase in the use of Russian armored vehicles in this sector. We also have a reported Ukrainian counterattack in this area. We can expect ongoing Russian attacks, probably at this level. At Toretsk, we had 21 Russian attacks. We have Russian gains southwest of Toretsk at Valetynivka. A smaller Ukrainian salient is forming on the far western part of this map. Russian attacks are likely aiming for Romanivka in that area. We have a Ukrainian counterattack in the Toretsk area. We can expect heavy fighting in this sector. Russian gains are more likely on the flanks of Toretsk and less likely inside Toretsk itself. I do expect some Russian gains over the coming week. Ukrainian forces are under pressure in this sector. Donetsk city area, Pokrovsk sector. 54 Russian attacks reported. We have reported Russian gains at Preobrashenka with Russian gains direction Troitske. This is on the western side of the Russian front, with them pushing in a relatively narrow front direction west. We also have minor Russian gains at Udashne. Russian attacks are now directed mostly direction west, southwest of Pokrovsk. Probably they are trying to flank Pokrovsk from that direction. It is also possible that Russian forces are trying to create a bigger Ukrainian salient by attacking in the general Vremivka direction and attacking out from Vremivka direction north. We have reports of Russia using older armored vehicles to be used as infantry carriers. Russian attacks have again moved towards attacking in smaller groups to try and infiltrate Ukrainian positions. We can expect very heavy fighting. Russian gains are more likely in the western direction and less likely in the direction of Pokrovsk itself. West of Donetsk city. Russian attacks continue, but I have no confirmed gains since yesterday. We can expect ongoing Russian attacks over the coming week. Vremivka area. Russian attacks continue in force between the two rivers in this area, with other attacks reported on the flanks. I have no confirmed Russian gains since yesterday. We can expect ongoing Russian attacks, most likely between the Verona and Mokry Yali rivers. Kamyanske area. We have some Russian attacks in the Orikhiv area and in the Kamyanske area. No confirmed changes since yesterday. Expect some Russian attacks in this area. General conclusions. The biggest gain, which is still limited, have happened west of Toretsk. That gain have not changed the general situation, but it is worth keeping an eye on. Except for that, Ukrainian forces are under pressure at Kursk Sumy, Kremina, Toretsk and southwest of Pokrovsk. Russian gains remain limited and intermittent. We have some reporting that Russian forces are somewhat increasing their use of armored vehicles. The latest check of Russian armored vehicles still in storage would indicate that Russian forces cannot sustain losses from 2024 in 2025. Russia will of course not run out of vehicles, they will simply have to use them less, and that should drive up Russian losses, which I expect we will see during the second half of 2025. Russia likely has the manpower to conduct a spring offensive. I judge it as unlikely that they have the tanks or the infantry fighting vehicles to sustain a major offensive or at least they cannot afford heavy losses in those categories. The oil price is low, which will put an additional strain on the Russian economy. Russia will need to try and increase production of tanks and armored infantry vehicles. Regarding the fighting, expect ongoing Russian pressure with some sectors having heavier Russian attacks. Russian limited gains are probable over the coming week. It is unlikely with any significant Russian gains over this time period. We can also expect local Ukrainian counterattacks, most likely they will be spoiling attacks. Russian losses remains high. Russian casualties are likely to reach over 1 million. End of report.